So welcome to DC Conversations. Tell us, what is this sparkling tea? I've heard sparkling water. I've actually tasted it also, of course. What is this sparkling tea? And how do you think this fits into the Indian market? We are all chai lovers, yes, but this is something different.
So, what a great question. So, from let me give you a bit of a personal journey first. So, I don't drink alcohol.
Mm,
Okay, and over the years, I've always struggled with what choices are available to me. Right, either sugary carbonated drinks or sugary still drinks, so not really much choice.
mm,
And so, a number of years ago, out of frustration, I actually started doing a bit of research in the beverages space and came across the sparkling tea product, which I didn't realize was a global category growing very rapidly in of its own. Right. And so the category was essentially started up by the founders of Copenhagen Sparkling Tea in 2017, right? And it came out of really the necessity to innovate. So one of the founders was a sommelier in a pretty high-end Michelin restaurant, and he couldn't pair a particular dish, and then started playing around with teas, and was also really interested in the celebratory aspect of champagne, the carbonation, etc. And thinking through really the flavorsome qualities of teas when you brew them, right? And we've seen this for centuries, right? How can you combine and innovate that flavor, the nutrient value of teas, the health aspect of it, which we've known for many, many years, right?
mhm.
And how can we bring that into a mainstream celebratory kind of environment, right? Instead of alcohol being
Yeah,
the pervasive choice today. Right, and the not only nutrients but vitamins. It's low in calories, etc. So the concept actually started growing quite rapidly over the last 7 to 8 years, and we'll share some data with you. But it's essentially last year the market was about $500 million globally, the sparkling tea market, right? And Copenhagen Sparkling Tea, where we own the distribution for India, is one of the leaders in the space. And I'm originally from Bombay, and have deep roots in India, and it just made natural sense to me to look at a product like this for Indian market, particularly because the Indian palate has been very sophisticated with flavor
mm,
for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? If you go into our cuisines from north to south, it's all so flavorsome, right? And it's got such variety, and a large population base in India actually doesn't drink alcohol, right? Doesn't, and is also becoming quite aware of the benefits of non-alcoholic choice
yeah.
for themselves, right? Be it Generation Z, millennials, but I'd say even elderly people across demographics, people are becoming more and more aware. And so we found that in our initial testing, that there was a tremendous uptake on people liking the product
Mm,
because of the flavors that the different products had, right? And so, for example, each of our variants are made up of between 11 to 13 different teas, right?
mm,
And they're quite sophisticated, right? And so some are a bit sweeter, some are semi-dry, and some are dry. It's almost like how a palate for wines would work, right?
yeah.
And so, we looked at tests and trials within the Indian market for a good 6 months, and we saw extremely good uptake across the different kinds of products before we decided to get into the market late last year.
Mm. So, Copenhagen sparkling tea has a very unique blend, right? How do you think it resonates with Indian consumers?
So I think the um, flavors that we have, for example, if you look at the variants, the Bla variant, which in Danish means blue, right? That's essentially, we're talking about jasmine, white tea, and Darjeeling,
Mm,
right? And when you look at the blends of all of those together, right? Or if we look at Lis Grand, which means light green, right? That's a sencha, green tea and citrus.
mm,
Or the last variant, Lis Rod, which means pink, right? With that, we've got silver needle, hibiscus, and oolong. So with the combination of these flavors, we found that, for example, with Indian food, right? The Lishod does extremely well. It with seafood, with white meats, even with sweet dishes like in afternoon teas, right? So, for example, at Sea Lounge, which is such an iconic property in Taj Palace in Bombay, right? That was the first property and first hotel to keep our teas, and in the afternoon tea menu Bla, which is the jasmine flavored tea, does extremely well as a pairing offering there. Or in Chinese restaurants where we are, the green tea sencha is going
mm.
extremely well. And so we found for different cuisines and different kinds of moods, the product is taken up extremely well across multiple locations where we are in India.
Yeah. And how many variants do you have in all?
So we've got three variants, right? Which I had mentioned, and by later on this year, we're getting in demi bottles, so half bottles as well,
Mm.
to get into the market. And there's a lot of innovation going on in looking at a pipeline of other variants coming into the market.
So, how do you see the demand for premium non-alcoholic beverages evolving in India?
So I think it's a very rapidly growing market. I think people are becoming extremely aware of lifestyle choices and educating themselves on health consciousness. And I think a lot of it has got to do with mainstream, how sports is being viewed in India, right? How the demographic is changing. The younger generation is becoming a lot more health conscious than perhaps my parents' generation, and I think it's rapidly moving also towards wanting choices that are purely uh, tasty, tasty that it can go along with their meals, but also things that they can celebrate along with.
Yeah. And what kind of consumers are you targeting?
So, this product is literally targeted for anyone that wants to have a celebratory event in their life, right? Or anyone that wants to have a meal at home, right? Or a meal in a restaurant, because the product actually works across different palate types, right? And so when we have launched, we've launched across pretty premium hotel groups across India. So, we'll share the lists with you, but we're in all Taj properties, Oberoi, Leela, Four Seasons,
Mm.
so on and so forth, right? Intercontinental, Marriott properties, etc. And we have so there's a big push towards trade, which we've done, and we've seen extremely good uptake, as well as with some of the top end restaurants in India. So, for example, Mask, which is consistently one of India's, I think the top restaurant in India year on year. They were the first restaurant to take up our product. We've got glowing reviews from the chefs and owners there. Papa's in Bombay, again, Chef Hussein is one of the top chefs in India. They use ours as a part of their pairing menu. And so what we're seeing also is with a lot of the innovative chefs across India, they're looking at our product as they develop pairing menus
Yeah.
for for their client base. We've also recently launched our own direct to retail platform, sparklingtea.in. So that launched last week to make the product available retail, through our own distribution network across the country. And we're seeing, last thing I'd say is we're seeing very strong demand from gifting. Right? So if one looks at festivals in India, right, be it Diwali or Holi or even Navratras, etc., where people want to have something different, and we're seeing a lot of uptake on gifting and festivals. And I think this year will be the first year where we are also looking at the wedding season in India. So a lot of weddings, people don't want to serve alcohol. They want to be able to give a choice of other things, right? Because the focus is on the bride and the groom and so I'd say across those categories, we're seeing a lot of uptake and interest for the product.
And if you were to compare it with other premium brands, what is the key differentiator?
But I think the key, I think at the end of the day, whatever an individual has is their own decision from a perspective of a consumer, right? And, people make their own choices. I think the key differentiators, what we've seen in the market is really not only around flavor, because we've got extremely good feedback, and I'm really hoping for you to try the product this week and just ping me on WhatsApp because I'd love to know your feedback as well, right after you've tried it. But apart from the flavor, I think when one actually looks at the ingredient composition, right, and a lot of people are becoming aware, they want to see what's inside this product, right? So, for example, there's no added sugar. Right? The calorie content for a glass or flute is like 15 calories, extremely low, right? The caffeine content is like 15 milligrams per liter, extremely low. Because tea has some caffeine, right? But extremely low caffeine content. Sugar content, we're talking about 3 grams of sugar, which is natural. Right. And on top of that, it's full of antioxidants, vitamins, nutrients that you get out of teas. When we launched the product in India, one of the things we were thinking through as well, would two people consume a bottle, right? Two people won't necessarily consume a bottle of champagne, right? But would they consume a bottle of sparkling tea? And we found time after time, after one glass each, the couple wanted the second glass, and before that, they knew that the bottle's over. And so we've seen very positive uptake, and I think those are the not only the experience of what the product gives, but also the nutritional factors. I'd add a last point that the product is not fermented, which is, I think, critically important for customers who, for religious perspectives, don't want to have things that may even be considered non-alcoholic, right? Because, for example, non-alcoholic wines yet have a bit of alcohol in them, right? Because they remove the alcohol, it's fermented. Over here, when we're looking at sparkling tea, it doesn't go through that kind of fermentation process. You get the carbonation through 5 millibars of pressure. It's carbonated through pressure, and that's how you get the bubbles. Which I think for a lot of guests we're seeing, who are particularly sensitive to any residue of alcohol, over here it's literally, it's just non-existent.
Right. So what is the process like of sparkling tea?
In terms of making the tea?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the process is you actually brew the teas over a longer period of time, right? And so you start with the darker teas and then move to the lighter teas, and the brewing process
Mm,
goes on for hours and hours and hours until
mm,
you get a batch that you've perfected a batch. And the teas are sourced globally, right? So the leaves are, China, India, etc. And where the mixology all happens in Copenhagen. The
mm.
bottling is across Europe, and then we source it and bring it into India.
So other than India, what are the other countries where the product is being consumed?
So we're in 50 countries globally. So India is one of the last markets we've actually come into. But the products in 50 countries, probably in 3,000 hotels,
Mm,
and over 100 top-end Michelin restaurants worldwide.
mm.
Right from the three-star Michelins to two-star to one-star. So it's an extremely well-known product from a global perspective that we're really bringing into the Indian market.
So which country is the largest consumer?
I'd say right now the US is the largest consumer,
Okay,
uh, followed by a couple of countries in Europe. I suspect India will become a significant consumer within the next 24 months.
great. And what are your expansion plans like? What are your plans for India? The big plans for India?
Well, well, I mean, the market always determines plans, right?
Yeah.
But so far, we've seen extremely good feedback from customers.
Mm,
And so, as I was mentioning, we're looking at hotels, restaurants, gifting, weddings, direct retail, and multiple channels across the country. And it's a product that we believe will have appeal across different metropolises across India.
great.
Um,
Wow. Lovely. So thank you so much and all the best.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much
much.
for